talked about this before, but I want to reiterate the idea that since the student is using only one book at a time, it's a good idea for students to have a few more books that they're working on at the same time. It helps their reading, it helps their motivation, and it certainly helps them to fill up their 30-minute practice time at home. So I talked a little bit about Flashcard Friend for Succeeding at the Piano, which are just terrific sets of flashcards. There's rhythm, there's musical symbols, and there's also quite a bit of combined reading system, intervals and guide notes and note names. And Energize Your Fingers Every Day, super series that I'm doing with Tim Brown, one of my absolute favorites. And this ties in reading with technique so beautifully. And I talked about Succeeding with a Notespeller, just wonderful activities for our students to have further reinforcement and review of all the guide notes and the note names that they're learning in Succeeding at the Piano. So constant reinforcement will certainly create wonderful musicians, thinking musicians. And there's another series that students can start at this time, which is called In Recital, with little pieces for little fingers. And this particular book that I have is of children's songs. So very easy preparatory level pieces, and they're all folk songs. So here's The Farmer in the Dell, For He's a Jolly Good Fellow, arranged by Kevin Cosley. The Alphabet Song, arranged by Kevin Olson. And so there are some marvelous teacher duet parts for all of these pieces. Down by the Station, Bingo, London Bridge, If You're Happy and You Know It, Clap Your Hands. And there's Row Row Your Boat. This was arranged by Kevin Olson as well. So these are just terrific pieces to use as supplementary materials for our students. Students are learning tide notes. They're reviewing the tide notes because they just learned it in the Prep B book, right? They're reviewing all of the notes that they have learned in Succeeding at the Piano. And why not have students understand what great folk song literature is? So on page 46 and 47 of the Prep B, this is Row, Row, Row Your Boat, one of the most famous folk songs of all. The practice steps are as follows. Circle the two left-hand crossovers. So the student can see at the end of the first page where it says move left hand. That is where they will have a crossover up to this C up here. And then the other crossover, have the students still scan the music. Oh my goodness, the crossover is at the end of the piece. So the very last line goes like this. And what is that practice strategy we teach our students in order to play with 100% accuracy? It's the play, prepare, practice strategy, right? So here we'll say ready to the students, look, and they look at the C that's above middle C, and then we say move. And they move to that C. Now, you know, some students will use different fingering, right? They'll come up with a 5 or the 1. So they always have to go to the correct key with the correct fingering. And again, if they tap it, then they really are sure that they have the right key. Then they're ready to play it correctly. Tap and say the words. If you don't think your students can say the words right now, you can definitely have them just tap and count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And here's your move. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you notice in the middle of the piece, I wasn't just tapping the rhythm, right? I was actually playing this rhythm with the correct fingering. So that's another great way to practice the pieces. And then they can certainly point to the notes while they count. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So you notice my voice grew in a crescendo, right, when I was counting through that tide note so that I would be sure that my students gave it 6 full beats. Then they can tap and say the words and they're ready to play it. So I think I'll play it. Oh my goodness. The tempo says flowing along, and at the very beginning we ask our students what fingers will be the best for the beginning notes. Getting louder. 1, 2. So something to be said for students to fill in the fingering on their own. It really makes them think about, well, I'm not in middle C position anymore. It looks and it feels like I'm in C position. So I have the 5th finger on the C, the thumb on the G, and the thumb on the middle C. So, oh boy, does that feel really good. Our musicality girl asks, can you sing the melody while playing the tied notes? Shall we try that starting at measure 5? Here's our pitch. So that might be something that I would isolate right there and have students work with little chickens or whatever you have down on the side of your piano and have them do that 3 times correctly. And I know I've done this before, but might as well do it again. So let's say I'm going to have you start on measure 5 and go to measure 9. And when you play it correctly with 100% accuracy and fingering rhythm and note names and a nice, thoughtful thinking tempo, we can move a little chick over to this side of the piano. So let's try that. 1, 2, 3, merrily, merrily. Whoa, that was good. Let's move a chick over. Gently down the stream, merrily. So if they can't do that while they're feeling a good sense of pulse, then have them count it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right? And then we'll move another chick over. And you know what? That was so much better that way, counting it. So let's do it again, counting it out loud. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Ah, beautiful. You ready to have another chick over to that side. So when these 3 friends are over here together, then you can have the student repeat that entire section again. And then all the chicks go back to the other side of the piano keys. And so this is a wonderful way for students to understand that it's important to repeat successfully, right? And the idea that actually practicing begins when a student plays something correctly. You know, lots of students will play something incorrectly, and then the first time they play it correctly, they're done with their practicing of that piece. But that isn't the case, right? Practicing begins when something is played correctly.